Hey, how's it going, everybody? It's Zuko. Thanks for stopping by, and welcome to another episode of the Preorder Roundup. We're going to be looking at a bunch of upcoming anime figures that you might be interested in ordering, or maybe not, depending on your taste. November was a very busy month for me during my move, and I also had my older brother's wedding. A lovely time, but I'm back and ready to focus on this, and also sorry if this video is a little late. Not sure when this is coming out, but I've just been trying to record around like my noisy neighbors. I don't want to like do it when they're moving around, but they're always moving around, so it's very difficult for me right now. Either way, let's talk about those budget figures. Here we have Asurpa from Golden Kamui, who I don't believe has too many figures, so it's nice to see this little figure of her. I would say any pop-up parade that actually includes a weapon is already a plus, but then you also have like how layered and like heavy her outfit is, right? Just because of like the coat that she's wearing and the boots, the fluffy boots, right? I like her face too. I haven't seen the show or read the manga, but seems pretty good to me. You know, I like this one. We also had a pop-up parade of Panther, or An, from Persona 5. This one is just full-on glossy with the finish they gave the paint job, which is pretty appropriate, right, considering what she's wearing. Really have no issues with this one at all. In fact, I think it looks pretty good because of that gloss. It just makes the paint job look a little bit nicer, and the pose is very cute with the peace sign. Really, I don't think you could ask for much more with this one. We also had a pop-up parade of Lust for 4,800 yen. This one I'm like happy to see, but I feel like the final product's not going to look that great because of her, you know, primarily black color scheme. It's like 95% black, right? Which means it's going to look a little bit flat. And also, I wish her fingers were a little bit sharper. They look not like dangerous and sharp enough, right? Like I just feel like they're not as lethal looking as they should be, but you know, for the price, I guess they can't make them too sharp. One of the bigger pop-up parades this month, though, was Yuno from Mirai Nikki. Now, there's actually two versions of this. You're going to have to decide which one you like more. This yandere version is actually an online exclusive, even though I feel like most of us watching this order our products online anyway. But just be aware that this one's going to be a little bit harder to find. And personally, I feel like this is the better get just because of the expression. I think she kind of elevates the whole thing a bit more for me, whereas in comparison, the axe and the cell phone are nice, but I don't know, I just don't really feel much emotion from this figure, so I do like the exclusive one a little bit more. We also had the male Byleth from Three Houses, Fire Emblem of course, for 5,500 yen. I'm gonna say something a little bit controversial here. I think male Byleth has a better design than female Byleth, and that's just personal taste, of course. She is still very hot, and I like those tights, but just something about male Byleth works for me in terms of a character design. And as far as his pop-up parade goes, chose a great pose for him, included the sword. Unfortunately, I do forget the name of it. I have not played that since it came out. And they gave it some like weathering. It looks very worn down, which I like, especially for this price point. Now, moving on to the large size pop-up parades, I thought this one was extremely adorable. Here we have Komeko, the large size for 8,800 yen, striking like a superhero pose and the cape all patched up. Just wouldn't have expected her to get a large size pop-up, but it's a fun one. But there was also a Megumin in the part-time job uniform version, so basically like a little maid outfit, right? This one's not like super exciting for me, but she does look cute. Really shy about being in this outfit, I suppose. Colors are pretty simplistic. I like the red of the skirt, though. And it seems like there's going to be a little bit of gloss on like the heels, of course, but you know, pretty straightforward outside of that. This was another one that I actually really liked this month, Anna from Makaine. Very surprising that this character, and really anybody from this series, has like barely gotten anything, considering this show felt very like heavily advertised and pushed, and a lot of people liked it, so it's not even like it failed or anything, but we're not getting many figures of these characters. But here's a new pop-up parade L from Good Small Company of Anna. It's a very endearing setup. The double peace sign, the very happy smile where she's winking. I mean, yeah, she's just in the school uniform, as she typically is, so this is how most of her figures should look. But yeah, I mean, for what's going to equate to about 60 bucks or something like that, I feel like this is pretty perfect for a budget figure, right? I just wish you would get more figures because she was a really fun character, and I don't know how they kind of just glanced over her unless some are coming in the future. Especially like Aniplex, right? You think they would want to cash in, but doesn't seem to be the case right now. And then our last pop-up parade was Al Azif, if I said her name correctly. 12,000 yen. This is an SP pop-up parade, so a little bit more expensive. And I guess that's just because of like all the ribbons in her hair and like on her wrists and stuff like that. They're flowing all over the place. Comparatively to like other SPs though, I don't really feel like this is matching that same quality. Like I just unboxed the fluted armor from Demon Souls. Same price, but he's a grown ass man in a full set of armor. I don't really see why they're the same, right? Even had a shield, even had a sword. I mean, she's got some like weird wings like attached to her hair. That's neat, I guess. I'm not really sure what that's supposed to be. And her face is cute. It's a little suggestive. Maybe that's raising the price a little bit, even though it really shouldn't. It's not a bad figure at all. I like the colors of her hair. It's a really like light purple, that nice lavender, very soft, very easy on the eyes. But I don't know. It's cool, but I think this would have been fine for like 8,800 like all the other ones, or maybe 10,000. Other than that though, we did have a lot of figures coming from China at extremely affordable prices considering their size, like this Hitomio 16 selfie girl, 1/6 scale, 7,000 yen. This one even seemingly includes the vanity. That's what it says down there. For that price, that seems kind of insane. I don't know how they're really pulling this off, but yeah, there's a lot of these like very sexy character designs for super cheap prices. Here is the Inoue Iris, 7,400 yen. This one includes not only an acrylic stand, but also like a 3D art panel. They're just throwing everything at you to like really entice you here, as if like the sexy dress that she's wearing wasn't doing that already. Here is a figure from Bear Panda of the private tutor Asako for 7,900 yen. Probably my favorite of the last three, if only because like her skirt is very glittery, and I like that the top has that like sweater texturing to it that Good Smile Company does a lot. I just think this one looks maybe like a cut above the last two we saw. Not a competition though. Also, she does have a face mask if you like that. I typically do. Even like the attempt at like a leather bag here is kind of impressive for the price point. Also, she does come with a little stool. It's got like a curvy design to it, and it's very glossy as well. Not bad at all. This next one's kind of funny though. Here is a ghost girl from Chiyu for 5,500 yen. Very shapely because of how tight her dress is, but there's also like a sheet thrown over her head. Very like, I don't know, Peanuts, like Charlie Brown like costume for Halloween, just the way it's designed. But yeah, I don't know where they come up with these like concepts, but it is kind of funny. Moving on though, here's a figure from the Hungry Lamb traveling in the late Ming Dynasty for 6,400 yen. Another character I'm unfortunately unfamiliar with, but this one might be my favorite of like the characters I know nothing about, just because of how like tattered their clothes are, how dirty it is. You don't typically see that kind of thing on a budget figure like this, and there is like a bunch of versions of this figure. Primarily you can have them wearing shoes or not, but also there's like this background piece that you can get for a little bit more money as well. Moving on though, we had some Mythos figures, both from Honkai Star Rail. These are in the Gift Plus series or like line, so they're a little bit smaller, but much more affordable. 7,100 yen for both Kafka as well as Alicia. Now, they're a little bit different. The Summer Miss Elf version, more of a swimsuit figure, whereas the Kafka Star Rail Live version has her in this very like fancy formal dress, playing the violin, of course. From the shading of her hair to the gradation on the dress, the pattern looks great on the dress too. Very attractive. Love her legs on this sculpt. Even the violin has strings on it, which sometimes, like figures that cost more, won't even do that, so nicely done from them. I think the Alicia figure in comparison isn't as impressive, but she does look very cute. I do like the colors here too, the mix of plastics, like using translucency for the sleeves, right? And having that like beach base is nice on a budget figure like this. So yeah, I don't think you could go wrong. I do think there's a clear difference in quality between these figures, despite them costing the same price, but I think they're both pretty lovely. Moving on to Rebos, we had another one of these Tea Time Cat girls. This is the Lemon Cat, which I believe is a like recolor of a figure that previously was released. And I think the teacup last time was not clear. I don't think it was transparent. So you got that going for this one. 9,900 yen, and this cute little cat can be yours. This one from Apex is precious as fuck if you ask me. The Cthulhu Meowthulu Pajama Party Complete figure. 13,800 yen. I think she's pretty small. I think that makes sense, 10 centimeters, and it's a non-scale, so don't expect this to be a very big sculpt, but considering the tentacles and like the 6 plushies that are all just surrounding her, or really being surrounded by her hair, I think it makes sense. I think that price point is completely justified. We have seen this character get other figures kind of like this as well, but I don't think they were from Apex. I just love these weird, creative, cutesy monstrosity things, especially like the plush cat with like the 6 limbs. That's just funny. I love this concept. Just a lot to look at, a lot to take in. Colors are great. The like creepy eyes, but they're also kind of cute. Considering Apex is making it, you're in good hands. Furyu also had some budget figures, not too much, but we did have 2 in the Tenetol line, both from Dandadan actually, one for Momo and one for Okarun. This is the transform version, of course. 6,000 yen will get you either one. I think they look okay. Personally, I'm waiting for something a little bit better, and in a second I'll show you a figure of Momo I like a little bit more than this one. But personally, I like it when Okarun has that like face mask with the teeth. Honestly, I don't know what you call that, but I just think he looks so much cooler when that face mask portion is on. He does look very ghoulish here though, just because of the way they painted his skin, so that's kind of neat. Anyway, from the Gem series over at Megahouse, we have another figure of Momo, which I personally think looks a lot better. Looks a little bit cuter. Now this one will be smaller because this is a palm size figure, but I don't know, it just works for me. I just think this looks a little bit nicer. I just like how they sculpted her clothes and her legs and the socks being all baggy. Even the alien earrings just look like they have a bit of a curve to them instead of being flat on this figure. And the face just looks a little bit nicer there too. But, you know, a little bit more expensive and a little bit smaller might not really be your preference. That wasn't the only palm size from Megahouse though, because we also had Rukia from Bleach, who's looking pretty uncompromised as far as art style goes. Sometimes I do complain about that from the Megahouse Bleach figures, but I think she looks pretty on model here. They're trying to make it like slightly, ever so slightly suggestive, I guess, by her pulling on her collar a little bit, and she's not wearing shoes, so she's showing off her grippers. And there was also a figure of Mayonaka Punch for 8,200 yen. This one, I don't know if it really looks that good to me. I'm not very familiar with this character, but her face looks a little bit off. Just wearing a sexy swimsuit. I'm not sure if this is supposed to be like fruit punch or blood. You know, knowing anime could be either or, but yeah, I don't know. This one doesn't really look that great to me, but maybe you know more than I do. Maybe she looks fine. Either way, that's going to wrap it up for the budget figures. Alright, so next up we're going to talk about Freeing, and this month was a little bit interesting from them because they had so many OCs, so many figures of original characters, like at least 6 from what I counted, which just makes it feel like they're really trying to get into this part of the market, which is cool. Honestly, when we look at the bunny figures that are original characters, they usually have better designs, because I don't know what it is, but Freeing gets very lazy when it comes to making a bunny figure of a popular character from an anime. But not so much here, because we're seeing, say, like the Little Berry figure. Even though this is a traditional black suit figure, she does have like a ribbon on her back, the ears a little bit different, the hair clip on her hair. Just even this simple little figure still feels like it's deviating off the path a little bit. She's going to cost you 32,000 yen, and she's also a cast-off if you're interested in that, but I'm not going to show you those photos because it's a little dicey on YouTube. Here is a figure of the Iro Bunny Monica from D-Smile, pretty popular artist, for 38,000 yen. Pretty expensive, but this one does throw in that jacket that she's about to throw on. You can take it off though, which I definitely was not expecting, though it does feel a little awkward without it. I love red bunny suits, really nice, like metallic red bunny suits, so I do like this one quite a bit, but yeah, I don't know. A little expensive, but I guess the jacket does make up for it, even though they probably could price it a little bit lower. Here is a familiar face though, Sophia F. Shearing. Bunny version 3rd. In fact, this might even be like her 6th figure because she has so many of those like reverse bunny suit figures too, and the mechanical looking ones or the futuristic ones. It's crazy how many figures they've made of Sophia F. Shearing. And not even just Freeing, but like so many companies have made figures of her, and she's looking very Torpedo-esque, and I'm just gonna leave it at that. I do like having her tights just be like a jet black or a really dark brown instead of the fishnets, just to mix things up. It's a nice design for a bunny suit, as most of her figures are, but there is a bit of fatigue when it comes to this character because, my god, do they make so many figures of her. This one's also a cast-off though, and considering her bust, they're gonna leave a pretty big impression on ya. But yeah, I do like the pattern work on her bunny suit this time around, and I do like the little like tassels or like ribbons that are coming off of her ears just to add a little bit of flow. Usually her figures are good, but I don't feel like we really need this many figures of her. Anyway, moving on, we also had some 1/6 scale OC figures, including the Iro Bunny illustration by Mignon for 27,000 yen, enjoying a little bit of ice cream, kind of blushing about it, I guess. Maybe she doesn't want to be caught snacking so much, but I do love her hairstyle. But I guess most notably is the huge cutout in the suit around her stomach, revealing like not only the tummy, but a little bit of underboob as well. And also, she does come with some white fishnets, which I think looks great in combination with the white hair and the purple suit. We also had Ryu Hoshizaki for 25,000 yen, and this one's probably the biggest departure as far as a bunny suit goes. Almost looks more like a swimsuit to me, but I'm pretty sure it's not. Love that she's striking the Korean heart pose, very cute. And the light blue, I love that shade for some reason, matches alongside her eyes, and considering the rest of the palette is just white, I think it's a lovely color combo. And then we also had a figure of the Iro Bunny, illustration by Sato Pote, also for 25,000 yen. I'm assuming you get this cylinder that she's sitting on, otherwise this figure wouldn't work. I think that's a little boring, but also it's nice that she comes with like her own riser, so I guess it's fine. But her pose is very lewd, just like the legs spread completely, and also the suit this time around is extremely tight looking, like it just doesn't fit her at all. It's the wrong size, most apparent around the chest, of course. But yeah, she's got like pearls in her hair, there's like a tag attached to her ear, some ribbons along like some of her strands of hair. There's some nice little details and just like extra touches to this one that I think it makes it pretty appealing. Also, her face looks good, so just like props to the artist, because I think they did a good job. A little bit of a flesh fang, if I'm not wrong. Hard to tell from this distance, but I don't think that's a normal fang. I do think that's a flesh fang, and I do like me a flesh fang every now and then. But yeah, just take note of those last few figures as we move on to some familiar faces like Asuna from Sword Art Online. Just a black bunny suit. Doesn't look bad. 36,000 yen though. I don't see the justification in that. I feel like they're not really trying with this figure as much as they should. But like, I'm not offended by it or anything. I just wish these would cost a little bit less if they're gonna give us something so basic. And that's unfortunately the trend for the next 3 figures as well. Even though I think it's really cool to get a Please Teacher figure of Kazumi. Like, when have we gotten a figure of her? Like, it just feels like that rarely, if ever, happens. 35,000 yen for this 2002 callback, right? Frankly, I think her face is pretty, and I like the shade of red they went with for her hair. The pose is good too, like the lying down, like slightly kind of rising herself up. It's good. I like this one. I think it should cost a little bit less, but that's just me. Maybe most notably though are some bunny figures from Bastard. Now the series has been making a bit of a comeback. I mean, it did recently get a new anime, and also we have started to see some new figures of them, but I guess I just wasn't expecting to see 1/4 scale bunnies from Freeing of either of these two. I'm kind of surprised there's such a price difference between the two though. I mean, they look pretty comparable, right? But, you know, one's 40,000 yen and one's 33, and they both came out this month, or went up for pre-order rather. But I mean, if you ask me, the Archie figure just looks so much better. Maybe that's some bias towards the Dark Elf. She just looks very pretty here, and I think the contrast with her skin complexion to the white suit just works so much better than doing light skin white suit, right? I don't know, it's a little bit boring in this instance, but this one kind of slaps. Either way, I think that's it for the bunny figures, or at least everything from Freeing, so we move on now to Kotobukiya next. I guess I'll double check. Alright, so Kotobukiya had a lot of figures this month actually, maybe even like 10 or so, which is pretty high for them. And we're going to start with Pokemon, of course, with a re-release of Gloria and Sobble for 15,400 yen. I can't recall if this was one of the expensive ones on the aftermarket, but I wouldn't be surprised because they typically all are at some point. But I believe this is happening because they also put up Victor and Score Bunny for the exact same price, always keeping these figures as affordable as possible, which you'll love to see. Roxy is getting a re-release. Now, unless my memory is wrong, we did get like a stone version of this figure, which was like based off of the figure in the anime, and then that figure in the anime kind of inspired this figure, but this one's already out. You can look up reviews of it if you would like to. 18,700 yen, and she can be yours. And if you're not aware, this figure does have a gimmick where you can like take off most of the clothing, because there's like these huge seam lines in it, and you can see her in her underwear, because that was like what happened in the show, right? Either way, moving on, we have some new stuff. Here is an Asura figure, Aoi Sui, for 28,600 yen. Very expensive. I don't know why, but Kotobukiya making sexy figures always throws me off. I just never expect it from them. But yeah, we have this rather curvy and busty girl from the Megami device. Is that what the series is called? Yeah, they're like model kits originally, but they've kind of increased the size tenfold, because originally they're very tiny characters, but now they're like 2-to-1 scale, so they're like twice as big apparently. 305 millimeters though, that's about like a 1/6 scale compared to other figures that we typically see, so she's rather big in many aspects. But I do wonder, you know, considering the beach base is just like a disc with some water coming out of it, not the most impressive beach base if you ask me. Really, the compelling points is just like the really tight swimsuit on her. Her skin looks rather glossy, as if she's like sweating. I'm assuming that's what's going on, or perhaps just wet from the waves, right? Either way, it's surely a hot day out there, so she's got to cool down in some fashion. But she also does have a bonus faceplate, like most of these figures tend to do, where she's licking her lips. A little cheeky, this faceplate. Pretty good one, but it's going to cost you quite a bit more if you want to go out of your way to get it. Yeah, I mean, outside of the base, which I'm not a big fan of, I think this figure does look rather nice. Even like how they're putting the water gun like in the position that it is, so she's kind of bumping against her chest a little bit, just to give it a bit more sense of realism, right? Like she's actually, you know, interacting with her body, and it's not just like a stiff sculpt. So pretty good stuff, pretty sexy stuff. But yeah, here is a figure of Yuzuki Choco, the maid costume version, for 27,500 yen. I believe this is the version 2. Pretty sure she has another figure. I guess we'll just check immediately what her bonus faceplate is, just because I sometimes forget and I hate that I do that. But yeah, she's closing her eyes, looking very happy in this instance, but I don't think it looks as good. I think her eyes look very pretty, so taking them away and having them closed doesn't really feel like a necessity for me. But I mean, if she's your Oshi, then you would probably want that, right? But yeah, this is like a maid style figure. You do get these little demon creatures. I don't have a lot of familiarity with her, unfortunately, so I don't know what these are called, but they're very cute. I like the otaku style shirt that one's wearing, but yeah, they're just trying to help out. The big semi-translucent hearts in the back is also a nice touch, just to make the base have a little bit more extravagance to it. And I always love it when characters have tails and it wraps around their leg. I just think that's kind of cute. What could I say? We'll move on now to, let's see, which one is this? Oh yeah, there is 2 OC figures. So we had Saotome Shino as well as Shirayuki Ren. These 2 girls are supposed to go together, but they don't have to if you're not interested in one or the other. I find this Ren girl so much more suggestive and also just so much more like exciting as far as the sculpt goes. The fact that like her top is pretty unbuttoned at this point, and she's also licking her lips. The Shino figure in comparison, I don't know, not as expressive, not as like fun of a sculpt. I do think her bonus faceplate does add a little bit to it. For some reason, my page is broken, so let me refresh that. All right, there we go. Almost giving us a moan of some sort. In fact, I don't even remember what Shirayuki's bonus faceplate is, but I gotta say, now that I'm looking at it, not as good. Frankly, the like incorporation to combine them is a little lazy if you ask me. You just get like a fluffy rug. Considering they're nurses, I think having something look more like a bed from a hospital would just make more sense. I feel like thematically that would be appropriate, but we just have this very generic fluffy rug. So I don't know, it doesn't feel very inspired if you ask me, but the character designs are great. I think the colors are nice too, especially if you buy both of them, because they obviously contrast with each other, and the syringes slightly dripping out some liquid is also a nice touch. Man, I don't know if I've talked about these two before in a pre-order roundup, but we're just gonna do this now, so bear with me if I have. But Momoka as well as Rupa from Girls Band Cry are now available to pre-order, both for about 26,000 yen. And now all the band members are finally together and up for pre-order. It's a very, very expensive line though if you want all 5 girls. Even if you only want one, I feel like 26,000 yen is way too much to ask for, but I guess that's just me. Love this show. It was super entertaining, very dramatic, maybe a little bit too much so, but I had a great time with it. Looking forward to season 2, and the music's great as well. I'll give these two credit. At the very least, they come with their instruments, the bass and the guitar. Like, some of them don't, which makes the price even harder to justify, but at least these two are coming equipped. And I gotta say, I really like this outfit on Momoka. The boots slay. You know, I just love her outfit a lot. I guess just to, back Kotobukiya a little bit, if you look up close, even at this Rupa figure, while I'm not the biggest fan of the palette because it's very dull in my opinion, you look at the outfit, right? The vest and the skirt and the boots, they're definitely trying with the clothing. They're very wrinkly, there's a lot of like pouches and pockets and stuff like that. It's not a lazy sculpt by any means. But man, is that really expensive for a Kotobukiya figure. Anyway, I don't want to rant. I don't want to make it seem like I hate these figures. I just hate the prices of them, frankly, but, it is what it is. Not a big deal. One day I might buy this Momoka figure if I can afford it. And our last Kotobukiya figure is actually a Yu-Gi-Oh! One, a monster I am not familiar with, unfortunately. The Sky Striker Ace for 36,800 yen. That might be the most expensive Kotobukiya figure I've ever gosh darn seen. If you get the full picture though, it does start to make sense. There's a lot going on just from like the wings, I'm assuming, considering the name Sky Striker, right? A lot of them are ablaze and there's like 10 different wings just all connecting to her back, like a mech or something like that. Her sword is also ignited, and there's like this nice sense of dynamism thanks to the hair flow and just, everything on fire, right? So yeah, I mean, it's a pricey one, but it's definitely super sick. It's definitely like a pretty ambitious sculpt as far as Kotobukiya goes, and it's just a lively one too. All those effect pieces look rather nice in this instance. Doesn't feel tacked on, and the colors are great, very shiny because of the gold. It's cool. The pose she's striking is also just super sick. Seems like it's also an exclusive, so this might become hard to find in the future depending on how many they produce and how well it sells. So we'll see. Also, because I forgot and I just said I wouldn't forget this, here are the bonus faceplates for Momoka and Rupa. Pretty simple, but definitely in character. Anyway, moving on, we have a couple more Megahouse figures. Not too many, but I guess this one makes the most sense to jump into next. Here is the Portrait of Pirates One Piece K Maximum Sanji. So this is actually a collaboration with Kotobukiya. The first time they've ever done that. 33,000 yen. Very expensive. Now, I haven't watched One Piece in a while. I don't know the technique specifically that he's doing here, but you got this pretty stellar looking axe kick on display. The whole leg is just ignited in flame. Like the way it's streaking and just, swirling around the figure, it's just so visually impressive to me. Like I love just like this smearing trail of fire that they've captured within this sculpt. I'm assuming that he's also going to be resting his leg on this flame so he balances a little bit better, though I have heard that this guy will need a support rod of some kind. I don't think they show that in this gallery, but I have heard that before, so keep that in mind. But the paints on this figure is rather impressive as well, even outside of the blue flames, which look excellent, right? The blue and white mix here is stellar. But I'm really loving the gradation on his clothing. And this is something you do often see on the pricier Megahouse figures. I love this expression Sanji has. It's so exaggerated, this grit of the teeth and the vein popping out of his forehead. It just feels so on point for One Piece's just like art style and characterization that I can't help but love it, I mean, if you like flashy figures and you like Sanji, I mean, how much better does it get than this one? Either way, that is our big Megahouse figure, but we did have 2 more, both from Jujutsu Kaisen, one for Geto and one for Gojo. High school versions where they're chilling together. I'm assuming there's a photo of both of them together. There's not. That sucks, so I gotta jump between the 2. Not a big deal. We did see these 2 at the Mega Hobby Expo, I believe, and I'm happy that their prices really aren't that bad. Now, the paint job isn't super impressive here. It's pretty simple. I think we have seen both of these 2 painted better by other companies, Good Smile, even S-Fire. Well, S-Fire never made a Geto, but the school uniform is pretty similar to other characters in this series, right? So, but their faces look pretty on point. Very on model, and I do like this interpretation of Gojo, the smile and these like little circular glasses he wore during this arc. It's pretty nice, especially for the price. Even like putting some cracks in the steps. You didn't have to do that, but they did it anyway. Could have made the steps super flat, like just one gray, but they didn't do that either. So yeah, I don't know. I just expected these 2 to cost a lot more, maybe around like 25,000, especially for their height. But it's pretty good. So yeah, that's going to do it for Megahouse. Alrighty, so next up, let's talk about the stuff on Good Smile Company's store, starting off with Fat Company. They had a couple of re-releases, including Kyoko and Chiaki, both from Danganronpa, of course. Super popular figures. This might even be like their 3rd or 4th re-releases at this point. Just very creative in their composition. I really do like the sculpts of these 2, though they are a bit of a headache to put together, and that is from experience. I did not like assembling these 2 a couple of months back, but they're nice. Either way, we also had a figure of Mr. CB from Uma Musume. I love this girl's design. The bell-bottom pants and the Wario belt buckle. I know that's not what that is, but just kind of reminds me of something like that. And then her little hat. This feels very like Idol inspired, which sometimes the outfits are, sometimes they're not, but I guess just because I do like Idol figures, I'm digging this one. It's really the pants though. I kind of love her pants, and she's got some extra expressions too where she's winking, though I do think her default face looks a little bit better if you ask me. Yeah, simple figure, 27,000 yen, a little pricey for something like this, but there is a bit of a taxing on the Uma Musume figure, so understandable, but probably not going to sell super well to like the people watching this video, but I definitely like her. Just, I guess from a character design standpoint, hair looks lovely too. Just, I don't know, the way it's styled, how it's flowing in the back there, the bangs, I like it a lot. From Luminous Box, we had a figure of Rika from Gridman, of course, for 14,700 yen, super cheap. Frankly though, I don't think they've really hit the nail on the head in terms of the character design. Face looks a little bit off, and frankly I find her proportions a little off-putting, especially this image. I don't know why, but I just feel a little iffy about this one. Thankfully she's very cheap, and she also comes with the school desk, so the package is rather like justified. Honestly, cheaper than you would probably expect, but I just don't like the sculpting enough of this one, and just like her face, to really recommend this one personally. From SSR Figure, we had the Awakening White-Haired John 1/7 scale for 11,550 yen. These SSR figures are always so affordable, and from what I've gathered, they're actually pretty good, so, I mean, this is one hell of a deal if you like her design. And her design is pretty self-explanatory, really, not wearing that much as she wakes up in the morning. Not sure if you would call this, like, lingerie, just underwear, or pajamas, right? But the panties are essentially coming off at this point, revealing a lot of her lower region. The tummy sculpting is really good. I like the dimples on the back there. Hair is well sculpted too as it drapes over the bed, though it does make me wonder like how, I guess, plush or like stiff this base actually is, because it's representing the bed, but a lot of the times these are very squishy. But if it's supposed to actually wrap around the base, then it needs to have some stability to it, right? So I'm definitely curious to see how this one turns out. Here is one from Aniplex, actually, of the Bocchi the Rock characters all jumping in the air, which is a very iconic scene from the anime. We all know it, we all love it. I'm a little disappointed in this one, though. I feel like up close these figures, and I get it, there's 4 girls, and they're essentially like 5,000 yen each, but man, the sculpting and the painting just seems very low quality, if you ask me. Personally, I would have bumped up the price if it meant we were going to get better sculpts of these girls, because it feels like they're just kind of trying to cash in on a good idea. And it is a good idea, and it still has some validity because it's a cute setup. We like seeing these girls together, actually interacting, not just sticking 4 figures of them next to each other. They're actually like locking hands, right, lifted in the air. But I feel like they look a little bit too cheap for my liking. I just wish they put a little bit more money into this one. But, you know, not everybody wants to spend $30,000 or more on anime figures, so I get it. These are technically budget figures, so at the end of the day, it's probably fine. Our one DMM Factory figure this month is an OC, illustrated by Ron9U. I don't know if that's how you say their name, I apologize, but 27,500 yen for this girl surrounded by bunnies. An adorable concept, and frankly, she looks very cute too. And I don't really get why, like, all of their figures lately are costing this amount of money. All of the Bazoraze fashion figures from Oshinoko are 27,500, and now this girl is. It's just the price they decided for some reason. And I can't say I like that one flat price idea. It doesn't really make sense to me. Now, granted, I feel like this is a little bit more justified than those Bazoraze fashion figures, just because of all the little rabbits that are around her, even hugging one of them very closely. The base has like a little blankie on it and like some wooden panel flooring, which is nice. You don't really see a lot of it, but it's there. But it's not like the outfit, while cute, is that detailed. There's seam lines like all over her arms, which look very bad if you ask me. It's a good idea. Got a cute face, and who doesn't like little bunnies? They're adorable. They're just chilling around her. I like it. But I don't know. It's way too much money for me, in my opinion. Next up is a figure of Kaide Takagaki from the Idol Master. She is made by Wave, and this one's going to cost you 30,000 yen. The big highlight here, of course, is the beautiful dress, the gown that she's wearing. I like the laced gloves as well. The feathers adorning her dress, all the pearls around her waist and like her wrists, right? Some like little gems and jewelry bits just placed here and there, like the waist and the bottom of the dress, right? A lot of translucent plastic used for those feathers, and even like the tips of her hair, so you might like that, you might not. Also apparently has some heterochromia, which I didn't realize. Also, I think her mouth looks better up close than it did up there, because you didn't see like the slight peak of her teeth, because you just couldn't see that from afar. But I like that now. Anyway, let's jump over to Max Factory. Their one figure was Chun-Li, the standby version, for 29,800 yen. Now, I believe this is a 1/6 scale, just like their previous Chun-Li figure. And it was always a little confusing to me why they made 2 Chun-Li figures so close to each other. Now, granted, she's like the most iconic woman in gaming, and who doesn't love Chun-Li? Who doesn't love Street Fighter? Well, probably a lot of people, but I certainly do. And yeah, you know, Chun-Li's always gonna get figures until the ends of time, but it was just surprising that Max Factory made 2. And frankly, I think the previous figure just looks better. And it's kind of weird because both of them are drawn by Akiman, the original illustrator for Chun-Li, but they just don't really look that similar to me. I just find the other figure so much prettier. At the same time, she is still very pretty as Chun-Li at the end of the day. And while I think the other pose just is a little bit more interesting and up my alley where she's sitting down, crossing her legs, I do like this standby pose because you see it all the time. If you play any fighting game with Chun-Li, you're probably going to see her strike in this pose. It's before the fight begins, so it's just more iconic, right? And considering that Max Factory is making this figure, it's most likely that they're going to be borrowing a lot of elements from that other figure. And when I say that, I mean the premium paint job that figure had. Perfect color choices, on point shading, and like all the appropriate finishes and touches that you expect a Max Factory figure to have. This one's gonna be great. I just don't think it's that exciting because I already got like the definitive Chun-Li figure in my collection, and she's too pricey to the point where I'm gonna buy like another Chun-Li figure, but I'm not a Chun-Li guy. I just respect her and I did want a figure of her in my collection, but I don't need more than one, right? But she looks awesome. Her legs look so strong here too, which is definitely a selling point. Here is a figure of Senjo Gahara, the Letter to You edition for 22,000 yen, made by Good Smile Art Shanghai, and she is from the Monogatari series, of course. I'm a little conflicted on this one because I really like it conceptually. This is based off an art piece, and I always have liked that art piece, but there's just something about the way they sculpted her mouth that doesn't look as good as it did on the prototype, and it's very subtle. Very hard to explain, but I just don't feel like her face came out as pretty as it looked during that prototype phase. Everything else though, I'm definitely a fan of. The colors, the purple hues, and the red mailbox, right? I really like the color palette of this figure, though losing the green background that was in the original illustration does, in my opinion, hurt this figure a little bit. I think that was kind of necessary to make like Hitagi and the mailbox pop a little bit more, and that purple water, which is here, also looked a little bit better with that green background. So I guess just put something green behind her and it'll look just as good. But yeah, I do like that purple water. I kind of wish they hid the fact that it just ended like this, but the water rippling from the letters is nice, and I like the sign back there, the fact that she took off her shoes and stuffed her socks into her shoes so they don't get wet. This one's definitely on my radar, just because I like it conceptually, and I like the colors quite a bit. And the price really isn't that bad, but because I'm not like in love with it, I'm just gonna chill and see how it turns out, and hopefully I like it when she finally comes out in, what is that, December? Okay, we got a long time to wait. All good though, that's kind of how it is these days. And now let's talk about Good Smile Company. They had quite a lot of figures this month, only talking about the scales, not even the pop-up parades. And we're gonna start off with some re-releases, including the Elena Early Summer Sky Edition for 27,000 yen, and the Shirogane Noel swimsuit version for 19,800 yen. I remember this figure being super popular, rising in price, and then dropping down. But hey, if you need this figure, now you can get it from them directly. And I do think she looks really nice from the photos I've seen, but I don't own her personally, so can't give you that first-hand experience. But I have thought about buying it a couple of times. We also had a figure of A2 from Nier Automata for 20,000 yen. And I wish I liked this figure more. I don't need it to be super dynamic or anything. I just don't see her when I look at this figure, and I'm assuming this is based more off of the anime's art style, which I'm not very familiar with. I only really know the video game, but I just don't feel like her eyes are like, I don't know, sharp enough. She doesn't have that same kind of cool, badass, mysterious look to her. Just looks like a pretty lady to me. I feel like it makes her lose a bit of her charm that she originally had. And I do wish they went a little bit harder on like the dirt, because there's a little bit on like her thighs and her shoulders, but gotta look kind of close. Maybe it'll look a bit better in person, in some other photos perhaps, but I guess this one shot of her butt and her thigh looks pretty dirty, I'll give him that. But, you know, she's just standing there, got her sword, which is cool. The price is good for a Nier figure. Not getting too much with the base, unfortunately, but you don't need to if they're keeping the price low, and they are, so I'm not complaining about that. But, yeah, I don't know. I'm still waiting for a good A2 figure that just hits what I like about the character. None of these figures so far have, and it's just been an eternal wait for me. But they don't make figures only for me, right? So maybe you guys like this, and considering it's Good Smile Company, the quality will definitely be there. So, yeah. Anyway, we also had a figure of the Angel Police L for 23,800 yen. I love these photos that make it look like a magazine cover. They've been like showing this one off all the time on Twitter, and frankly, it did come out rather pretty, certainly a cut above the other Angel Police figures I've seen of her so far. A lot of that does have to do with her twin tail hair sculpt though. I just love the dynamism to it, so flowy. The individual strands breaking out. Seems like a very delicate figure though. If you're not careful, you might snap one or two of them off. So be careful if you buy this one. Kind of wish her wings looked a little bit better. I just think that's how the character design is, so I'm not going to hold it to them or anything, but they look a little bit cheap. That's the cheapest looking part of the figure if you ask me, but I think it's a small detail that doesn't really ruin the figure or anything. Really like her eyes though. Those red decals, so striking, so big too. The eyelashes look very pretty. Never noticed that you could just see her ass crack from like the side view of this figure, so that's a bonus for you if you like her. And yeah, she's got a cute hat. I like her big hat. Here's a figure of Ruler Melusine from Fate's Grand Order. This is her swimsuit version for 18,500 yen. Now, scrolling down really quickly, we can see she actually has a pre-order bonus, this little octopus fella hugging her foot. Kind of cute, but also I feel like it's been a long-ass time since we've seen pre-order bonuses like this for scale figures from Good Smile Company. Usually it's just like some extra thing you don't really need, and I guess that's kind of the case here, but since it's like a piece of plastic of a character, probably not going to want to miss it. So you might want to consider pre-ordering her here. if you like this sculpt. And I do like this sculpt. The one thing I don't is her wings. Once again, they just look a little bit cheap to me. That one flat blue just doesn't really work. There should have been like a little bit of shading or something there, but they just look kind of cheap, unfortunately, a little flimsy. They're so thin. That's probably just the character design, but like, I feel like they could have done more with her wings, unfortunately. Thankfully, the rest of the design makes up for it, in my opinion. I don't really care too much about the wings because I like the weird dragon wing swimsuit that she has around her chest, around her hips. Also, the cropped hoodie, I think, is a good look. The symbols and just crests on the sleeves are very cool. Even like the face mask that she's pulling down, I think is a great look. You can't take that off though, so hopefully you do like that on her. Now, unfamiliarity means I don't know exactly what her weapon is supposed to be. Looks like a cestus in my opinion. I've seen her fight with like blades before though, but you could actually take that off if you don't want it and have her doing a little peace sign, which is cute. Also, I think the like lime green nail polish is an interesting choice that I quite like, both on her fingernails and toenails. Just wasn't expecting that color for some reason, but I like it. I think it's a nice choice. Anyway, I've been rambling. Let's move on now. Here is Ichika from Blue Archive for 16,500 yen. Another character with wings, though frankly, she's got the best looking ones of the past three we just talked about. I like that they're curving in, and there's actually some feather detail here, so she's the clear winner in that regard. Pretty simplistic figure though, a very dark palette. I do like her assault rifle though, the red and the gunmetal mix, which you can see a little bit better from the back. Seems pretty well done. I think the wings and the gun are probably the best parts of the figure. She looks cute, it's very solid, but nothing super noteworthy, I guess. It's just a nice figure of her, right? For a very affordable price, so you can't really go wrong here. And I guess speaking of which, another very affordable figure is the Ruby Date Style version for 17,600 yen from Moshino Co. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think she was the last one to go up in the Date Style line. And they all seem like winners. I don't think there's a bad one in the batch, especially with those Bazaraze fashion figures. Those existing just make these figures seem like the ones to get. So I wouldn't be surprised if the sales are even better after those figures were announced, because you're saving 10,000 yen. It's nuts. Also, this outfit looks adorable on her. I love the blazer, the jacket that she's wearing, and like that pattern work on the top portion of her top. It's a little hard to see. This is a pretty good photo of it. I'm wondering if that's sculpted or if that's like a decal. It looks like it's raised off the plastic, so I think that's actually sculpted on, which is pretty impressive for this price. It's a good one. Her legs look great too, very slender, and her socks are so cute, very frilly. Anyway, we will move on now to our last Good Smile Company figure. It's a big one, a very expensive one. This is the Hatsune Miku Beauty Looking Back Miku version. So, collaboration, Kyugetsu, Japanese doll. This is the version with a dedicated glass display case. You can get this a little bit cheaper. It'll save you 20,000 yen, which is not insignificant, so keep that in mind if you don't want to spend all that extra money. It's nice to know though that you do get this little plaque regardless of the version that you get. But I guess I should have saw this coming, right? Considering the FNEX figures are all around this price or even more. But I didn't know this was like a collaboration thing. I thought it was all in-house from Good Smile Company. But I guess it makes sense. At the very least, Miku's got a gorgeous face. I love her eye decals so much. They're so sparkly. And her hair looks great too. Maybe not as like shaded as a typical Miku figure is. It does kind of just look like one light bluish green, you know what I mean? I think they could have done a little bit better with her hair, even though the sculpting and just like the style of her hair looks fantastic. It's kind of weird that they held back a little bit in terms of shading or like mixing in an extra color here and there for some gradation. The patterns, the flowers woven into the kimono also look great, but I just feel like I'm not the right guy to talk to about this stuff. I don't know what I'm talking about here. Frankly, I feel like I don't know what I'm talking about half the time, but I think, you know, because of this price point, I think it's hard to deny that she looks very pretty, though I do feel like the plastic portions of this figure could have been painted a little bit better. I feel like if you're gonna make a collaboration figure that's this expensive, you shouldn't hold back in any regard. But I mean, those eyes are some of my favorite eyes on any Miku ever, so I'm giving it that much credit. As far as her face goes, they nailed it. But yeah, you can bet your boy is not buying this. Anyway, I'm gonna gather the rest of the figures and we'll continue. So here's another Fat Company figure, wasn't included on Good Small Company's site because I guess it's a little bit too saucy, even though I feel like I've seen worse on that page. But regardless, here is the Girls Frontline PA-15 cow bikini version. And certainly that's what this is, even giving her some cow horns. It is a pretty skimpy swimsuit, primarily around the chest, right? The way this bikini is tied though is kind of strange. It's not around her back, it's actually like connected to the skirt, almost like suspenders, which I think you can take off. So maybe this is a cast-off figure. Her face looks great though, not only the fangs, but the heart's pupils, which again, there's probably a better photo of that. And yeah, since I haven't talked about it yet, the detail in her body, primarily the torso and the stomach, like my god, did they want you to see how skinny this girl is. Like as you go through this gallery, it's pretty apparent. Also her crazy messy hair, I've always liked. She's got a great hair sculpt, even if I wish there was like actual shading there and it's not just all translucent plastic, but it is what it is. Pretty well done. I think her face looks great, and the body sculpting is definitely the highlight here, absolutely. If you watched me and Derek's tier list video we did on anime figure companies a week back, you might have remembered us grilling Prisma Wing for their pricing, and I think this might be one of the easiest examples I could have possibly made if only I saw this earlier when making that video. But here is a figure of Luca from Prime 1 Studios, Prisma Wing, for 32,000 yen. This is atrocious as far as pricing is concerned. And it also doesn't really look like her, but I don't think that's a problem of the figure. I think it's just based on the art style. But the eyes are definitely very unique here. I'm not going to criticize that. But man, she's just wearing a sweater and some like very long glossy boots. And a scarf, I guess. Why? Why is this 32,000 yen? It's crazy because like the Miku that this figure is supposed to go with was like 20,000 when it first went up for pre-order. And it had a whole mini fridge. There was like 8 types of alcohol in there. Like what's going on with this figure? It's absolutely atrocious, the pricing on this one. I like Luca, but this is a bit of a travesty. They did her pretty dirty, unfortunately. We'll move on now to some more positivity. Here is a pretty simple figure from my dress-up darling of Sajuna Inui, the t-shirt version for 14,700 yen, priced about what I was expecting. I mean, what is there to say about this figure? She's a little embarrassed, right? She's a little angry because she's just wearing this t-shirt in front of you. And that's kind of it. We don't get a lot of figures of her. Though I know S-Fire is making a maid style figure like the maid outfit. And that's probably going to be pretty good. I would say that's a bit more exciting than this figure. But it's very cheap, under 100 bucks. If you like her, you could bet on QSQ doing a good job here, even if it is as simple as it gets. I'm very curious what people are saying about the Radio Eva Part 3 figures. I don't feel like there's a lot of hype behind these anymore, even though like so many people bought Part 1 and 2, and for good reason. They were fantastic figures, excellently priced too, just like the style, the fashion was super on point. But 3 different lines into it, maybe people don't really care as much as they once did. However, I would say I'm definitely a fan of this Rei figure. I never really got into the Part 2 version of Rei with the green jacket, just wasn't really to my liking, but the plaid shirt and the beanie, definitely way more up my alley. I do want to see what's on the back of her shirt though, because there is some text back there, but I think it just says spring, summer, autumn, winter. And maybe some of them are crossed out. I think that's what's going on. That's kind of cool. Either way, yeah, I dig this one. There's also the monochrome version if you're more into that. Neon Max had a figure this month. Not a company we see super often outside of their Wakamo figure, which exploded on the aftermarket. I think it's like twice the price now, but here is an Azur Lane Ting-On simplified version, 1/7 scale for about 21,000 yen. A very sexy dress as well as a super voluptuous character design. I mean, the way they're showing off her legs, the way they sculpted her bust looks extremely good. Like, I don't know, they just look heavy in my opinion. And then the back of the dress opening up so you could just see her butt completely. I think they want you to make sure you know she's like just super hot, right? So mission accomplished, you guys did it. But outside of that, the dress does have this pretty floral pattern on it. There's like a slight shimmer to it. Hard to say the exact finish or paint it has right now, but there's gonna be like a little bit of gloss maybe, or maybe it's a metallic blue. Hard to say. I really like her eyes though. That pinkish red, which is easily illustrated in this photo. Fantastic shot of her face, a little bit of blush there. Very pretty. Love the colors for sure. This one's great. The price is great too. Here's a pretty simple figure of Mikan from To Love Ru, made by Union Creative, the high school student version for 19,000 yen. Now, they really just changed her hairstyle here. This looks vaguely familiar, but I can't recall right now if this is actually from the show or just like some artwork thrown into the manga or something. Either way, typically she has that like pineapple thing going on. But it's a pretty cute hairstyle for her, I gotta admit. So good job, Union Creative. I mean, there's nothing really to write home about here, but I do like the hairstyle. It's cute. We move on now to a figure. This one is a 1 3/5 scale of Nene Ayachi from Sabats of the Witch, made by Alice Glint for 41,800 yen. I think this is a cast-off figure. I mean, based off her outfit, pretty much just wrapped in ribbon outside of the witch attire. You do get another faceplate. I like seeing her eyes. This is like the special edition, so I think typically you only get this faceplate. I could be wrong, but either way, can take off the witch hat. I think there's a photo of somebody holding this, just to get an idea of how big it actually is, which is fun. I like when they do that, so you get an idea, even though who knows how tall the person is. But either way, big ol' lewd witch girl heading your way for about 42,000 yen. Koei Tecmo Games and KT Model have finally put up their Mary Rose Steamy Venus version, the collaboration figure with Azur Lane, 1/6 scale for about 27,500 yen, or not about, that's the exact price. There is a normal version of this figure, which doesn't include the water, or the food, or the manju, and I don't know why you wouldn't want the manju. He's so cute. He's so like out of it. He is chillin'. He's trying to relax. You need him. I will say, I'm not exactly sure what they're doing with this water that's just kind of like pooling up on the bench, just like dripping off of stuff. It doesn't look that good to me. Thankfully, the whole base, the rock formation, the bench as mentioned earlier with like the wood grain, and then the water in front of her with like the leaves rippling on it a little bit. That all looks pretty good. Maybe not like the foot. I think they could have done that a little bit better. Clearly has been inserted into the base, right? So maybe touch that up a little bit before you release this figure. And then, yeah, they also made her like super shiny, as if she was actually like in the hot springs, steaming up, skin starting to glisten a little bit because she's getting rejuvenated from the hot water. But yeah, pretty pricey. At least they're doing a lot with the base though. Sometimes these KT model figures ask for so much and then there's not that much going on. But I guess to counterpoint myself, usually the character is wearing clothing, whereas she is just wrapped up in a towel. So I guess it kind of evens out in that regard. Either way, that's Mary Rose from Koei Tecmo. Love Live, Nijigasaki High School Idol Club, Lanzu Zong 1/7 scale, 21,500 yen, made by Plum. I don't know why they have her in this like military commander getup, but looks kind of cool if you ask me. I do dig the colors, I do dig the jacket, and all the gold decor and trim of like the dress and the boots and the sleeves. It all looks great. I just don't know her, unfortunately, so I don't have that much to say. Here's a figure of Mai Shiranui, a 1/6 scale from any game for 21,300 yen. This one feels very uninspired in my opinion, especially when they're specifically saying the King of Fighters 14, which is weird because we're on 15 right now, and she doesn't even look like she's from 15 or 14, doesn't look like she's from any King of Fighters or Fatal Fury game if you ask me. It just kind of looks like cosplay in my opinion. She's also so pale. I don't think Mai is supposed to be this pale, but I don't know. It's like, hey, it's familiar. She's got the fan, the color palette of red and white, showing off her butt, showing off her chest. Wowza, but it just doesn't really look like her to me, which is disappointing. Here's a figure from Magiarts, the Toho Project True Horror, standing right behind you, Koichi Komeji, 1/6 scale, on the phone, the denwa, about to stab ya, I guess. Watch out for this one. 26,000 yen for a Toho figure really isn't like that outlandish, but especially in this case because it's a 1/6 scale, whereas most of them are 1/8. So she's actually pretty big, but yeah, my personal take, and I've said this a few times, I'm just not in love with the art style of these Magiarts Toho figures. They look a little doll-like to me, and that's fine, but just not my personal preference. I think Koishi kind of dodges that issue, whereas Reimu didn't. Like, I don't really like that Reimu figure that much, but this one doesn't look that bad in my opinion. And I certainly think the paints on this one looks stellar. The shading of the leggings and the green dress look excellent in my opinion. Also, a very, like, interesting just sculpt with the eye wire just going all around her body, making the heart, of course, as it typically does, and then thorns on the bottom of the base, because why not? Even like a fake stained glass thing going on down there. Even if it does kinda look like a piece of paper, but it's still a nice touch. Some flowers blooming down there as well is also rather pretty, even though there's not too much. Now, she does come with some extra faceplates, which is only included with the deluxe edition, so make sure that you pre-order the right one if you do like this figure of her. And they're both a little bit more crazy. Like, she's actually gonna kill you. Like, she heard some bad news in this one, and then she's kind of just snaps in this one, which is definitely fun and definitely on like point with the concept of this, where she's standing right behind you, ready to strike. Anyway, this one's pretty stellar and definitely a standout within the month. And it's actually coming from Belfine, which if you watched our tier list video, you know I put them pretty low, but we're not seeing a lot of figures like this from any other company. But essentially, the paint job they've given this Toga figure, from My Hero Academia of course, is aiming to make her look as 2D as possible, and it's certainly a very strong attempt at that. This cel-shaded approach looks wonderful. I will say, I think there's like a little bit of a misstep when it comes to her face. I feel like her face could look slightly better. But either way, it's super impressive, especially as you go through the gallery, you look at like every angle they're showing you. It's really nice. Swear to God, I hope they actually do a good job on this one and they inspire other companies to do stuff like this. The only other time I can really think of a company actually selling something like this commercially is from Dragon Ball, like Goku and Vegeta getting that like 2D look. There's a decent amount of figures that look like that of Goku and Vegeta, but I mean, if Belfine, of all companies, are going to be the ones that actually inspire other companies to do stuff like this, then I definitely think they deserve some credit. Also, consider the fact that she's only 17,000 yen. You would think something like this would just cost more, but for some reason it doesn't. So, good job, Belfine. I'm pretty impressed. From gushing over magical girls is a figure of Leopard for about 20,000 yen, made by Kadokawa. This is a cast-off figure. Technically, she comes with some damaged clothing if you want to swap the pieces around, but can't show you that, unfortunately. This is also, though, a figure that comes with a special edition for about 5,000 yen more if you want a bonus faceplate where she's like a little angrier, gritting her teeth, which I don't think looks as good, as well as a double-sided tapestry. And this is what the other formation of the figure looks like, but they're censoring it for me, so I figure it's fine. Yeah, that's about it. Pretty straightforward figure. It's just her outfit. The base is super boring. I do like that they made the boots glossy, because the top isn't, so that distinction is nice. She's holding her gun, of course, but, you know, no pants on this character. The outfits in the show are pretty outrageous, if you ask me, and this one's pretty tame in comparison to most of them. I believe this figure of Shaltir is just a re-release by Kai Tendo. She has a really great figure coming up from Union Creative. Hopefully they like nail that one when she finally gets painted and put up for pre-order, but we haven't seen it painted yet. Either way, 20,000 yen, and this figure of Shaltir can be yours. There is another figure from Overlord, this time of Narbarrel Gamma, made by Furyu for about 22,000 yen. This one just depicts her in the maid attire, but she does have her spear, looking a little angry, a little stern. I do like it, but, you know, pretty straightforward figure once again. Furyu has made a couple of figures in the Overlord series, but none of them have really, like, spoken to me yet. But at the same time, we don't have too many figures of Narbarrel just looking like this in the maid outfit, so it's nice that they did, and I kind of like the blood red disc base, even if it is just a disc base. We Art Doing is a company that I've been aware of for about a year or two now, but they never really appeared on AmiAmi until recently. I think their stuff is starting to get a little bit more popular, and they're able to like branch out to other stores and maybe even produce more figures. But right now, we're looking at the Burger Fairies Black Deluxe Edition. Complete figure for about 36,000 yen. Extremely expensive. Not really sure how big this figure is, about 189 millimeters. So not super big, but I mean, it's a hamburger in a box, right? Not like she's standing up or anything. And I should mention that there is also a second color for this figure, which apparently the pre-orders are closed, which, I mean, that sucks, but I kind of like the black burger more anyway, so personally, I'm okay with that. But yeah, I remember like a year or two ago, I saw this mermaid in a can figure, and it was made by this company, and I thought it was so cool. Like, I wanted it, and it was completely sold out by the time I found it, and I never found it again. But that doesn't matter right now. What we're looking at is this girl who's basically like a hamburger. I don't know how else to describe it. Like, her dress is tomato and maybe some bacon. The meat is, I think, the teddy bear, unless there's extra meat on top of that. But that bear definitely is made out of hamburger beef. It doesn't seem like you have to keep the box on it, but why wouldn't you want the box? The box is fun. It's got some branding on it just to make it feel a little bit more real, like it's actually a real product you can buy. The paper underneath, like it's the advertisements when you go to a diner and everybody's just trying to sell you some stuff. It's so creative. It's so fun. The cheese dripping, the black sesame seed bun looks great. I love it. I love this concept. Doesn't fit with anything I typically buy. And I don't know if I like this one as much as the mermaid girl. Doesn't really leave me as awestruck as that mermaid figure, but it's still pretty dang stunning as far as like a figure that we talk about on this channel goes. Like, this is so separated from the typical anime figure. I wouldn't even call this an anime figure, but I can tell you it's a piece of art that I think is worth notes. So there you go if you didn't know about this one. Burger Fairy Black Deluxe Edition. Alright, so let me talk about Apex next. They had about 7 figures or so this month, and we're going to start here with the DJ Maxx Respect V figures of Racing L Clear, as well as L Fail. Funny names. I'm assuming it's if you beat the game or not, because this is a video game series, but they're going to cost you about 23,000 yen, and I really like these character designs, especially L Fail. Just something about this art style, a little simplistic in terms of like their eye decals, but very appealing to me. Both of them have twin tails, both of them are rather slender, and both of them are set up with the umbrella, but you also get the tire on Elfail, and she opened the umbrella up. She's also got this like slightly smug face and the cat mouth. I just really like this character design, and it came out of nowhere. I don't know what it is, but I'm just really liking her. I might even, nah, I shouldn't get this, but I really would if I had extra space. I'll think about it, but I don't know, it's not really like that spectacular of a figure. It's just when the character design hits, it really hits for me. I think her hair also looks nicer. It's kind of got more of a swoop to it as it blows in the breeze, whereas L Clear is standing there. It kind of reminds me of like a Gainax character for some reason. I don't know why, or like a Trigger one, where she's like got the umbrella planted in the ground as if it was like a sword or something. And I think she's showing off a little bit of her butt because the mini skirt is very mini. There you go, I was correct. Other than that, they seem to have a lot of gloss applied to most of their outfits, not only like the heels, but the mini skirts and the tops and the gloves. I like them a lot. I don't know what else to say, and I've never seen these two before. I'm gonna put that one on my wish list just to remember it because I love her. Anyway, next up is a figure from Zenless Zone Zero of Billy Kid for about 25,000 yen. It's nice that they're staying on top of this series because we know how it's been before with like Genshin, Honkai Star Rail kind of lagged behind a little bit, but we're already at 3 figures and the game's only been out for a few months, so good on them. And everybody seems to like Billy. I haven't played this game yet. Maybe I will someday if I find the time, but right now I'm playing like Dragon Quest III, finally playing Yakuza Gaiden, or Like a Dragon Gaiden, so I don't really have any time. But I will say, I think this sculpt looks pretty sick, and it's not like it's super dynamic or anything. He's striking a cool pose, but at the same time he is just kinda standing there with the gun up. What's really making the figure look good is just the character design and Apex being very faithful to it. Even sculpting in those cyborg chest and abs, like dang, that's pretty good. Like, it almost kind of surprises me that this isn't way more money than the other two girls that went up for pre-order so far, considering that it's not a human, it's a cyborg, and there's more detail you have to sculpt to make that believable, and how you paint it. It's not just gonna be like that fleshy pale white, right? It's actually got like the silver and the black, maybe some gunmetal mixed into that, and then you have that really vibrant red jacket with the handlebars on it for whatever reason. It's sick. It's a sick looking figure. You also get that film reel base that they all come with, which is gonna give them a bit more height, and it's gonna help you like rise your figure up in case you have someone shorter that you wanna put in front of him. Rika Takarada as well as Yume Minami are both getting Chinese dress figures for about 18,000 yen. And that's a little surprising. I thought they would be a bit more, but I guess Apex is one of the best when it comes to pricing their figures. Now, I feel like I've talked about these two quite a bit because they were painted a while ago and only now finally going up for pre-order. So I don't know what else I could say that I haven't already said. But I do like how, despite the similarities between the two, they do make both feel quite distinct from each other, which I think is important, especially when you're supposed to or suggested to pair them up together. They mixed up the furniture they're standing next to, or in Yume's case, actually leaning against the accessory that they're holding onto are both different. The flowers, the colors on their dresses are completely different as well. Gotta love it that Rika's thighs are a lot thicker, right? Lovely stuff, especially for the price point. But yeah, I think I've talked about those quite a bit, as well as this one. Here's the Azur Lane, New Jersey collaborated illustration version. They're teaming up with Zozo Town, the clothing brand, to bring you this figure for about 20,000 yen. There's a lot you could say about this one. The fashion is certainly on point. The fishnet top and the mini skirt, the glossy boots, still has those bunny ears though, which is very cute. I think she looks hot here. I don't know what else to say. The color gradation on her hair is just great to see, and I think I said this last time, but it's just nice that we have a figure of New Jersey that's not gonna need an entire shelf just to display it. All of her figures are so big, but this one isn't going to be, even if she's worth it. Not everybody has that real estate, right? I certainly don't have that much room to work with anymore, but man, this figure is just so dang good looking. And you do get a Shikishi board that includes the original illustration. Now that I'm looking at it, I'm kind of wondering why they changed things about it, like her pose and the way like her hair strands were sticking out of her head. I think the art's cuter. Wish I didn't see that, but this is still an easy recommend if you like Azur Lane and New Jersey, or you just like figures that look like this, because again, she looks phenomenal. Moving on though, we also had a figure from Reverse 1999. Soneto, a 1/7 scale for about 22,000 yen. Looks like a conductor to me, ready to put on a musical performance, but the sheets have started to like fly around the base just a little bit, but that sense of wind blowing is rather nice here. Though I do wish there was a little bit more in her hair sculpts, unless maybe just the papers are falling down, it's not actually that windy. However, there's like some ribbon tassels also kind of flowing in the breeze a little bit. The base is pretty interesting, because it's like asymmetrical in a sense. It almost looks more like a diorama in the back, but the staircase in the front is actually like walkable for a character of her size. The one in the back is like a staircase for ants, but yeah, it looks cool. I do dig it quite a bit, and the checkerboard hair accessories are pretty unique too. But yeah, I think that's it for Apex. We're almost done. Here is a figure of Rabbit Flova, a 1/7 scale by Rebos for about 22,000 yen. I wouldn't have guessed she's supposed to be a rabbit girl, but what do I know? I'll take their word for it. One of the more interesting things about this figure, it's a little hard to see it. You gotta look up close, but there's like a slight translucency to her clothing. If you look at her sleeves, you can kind of see what I'm talking about. Maybe her socks as well, but I'm more confident in saying that about her sleeves, right? So you can see like the skin underneath, which is very subtle, but very effective in my opinion. Seems like part of her clothing is also starting to like drape off of her because of the position where she's leaning over the chair, right? I love the way the chair looks too, adorned in these like really pretty flowers with like the inking on the inside to kind of highlight each individual petal. Also matches alongside with her tail and her hair, of course. And it seems like they've defined her lips, so you don't get the best shot of that, but I'm hoping that looks pretty on the final product, but just don't have the best, like, up-close shots of her face, unfortunately. Here's the Goddess of Victory Nikkei Alice Sweet Home version for about 25,000 yen. Now, for some reason, Amakuni made a limited edition, even though, like, all of their stuff is limited to Ami, but it means that this XD faceplate that she comes with is not included with the standard edition, which costs closer to about 23,000. So you can save a little bit of money if you don't want this extra faceplate. However, it is adorable, and I would argue it works better with the pose than the default faceplate does. Either way, this is a rather casual depiction of Alice. All the bunny, just like design elements of this figure are very cute. Her twin tails, which are nice and curly, do seem to be made out of like translucent parts, which is fine. Looks good in this instance. And I will say, she's pretty shapely as far as like her legs go, especially from the back of the figure. Because the hoodie, while it is pretty tight and the bag is kind of digging into her a little bit, you know what I mean? Like the butt on Alice is just like fully defined, like nothing is hidden as far as like her legs go. But yeah, I trust Amakuni will do that one like perfect justice. Amakuni also had their Arm Notes the Swimming Club Anego-chan figure for about 23,000 yen. She looks extremely tall. It might just be because of like the way the swimsuit is cut, which makes her legs look longer, but she's about 25.5 centimeters up to her head, which is pretty respectable for a 1/7 scale. Favorite part about this figure is definitely just her face. I really like her face, the sharp teeth, the really bright blue eyes contrasting with the red hair with the white streaks. Her skin complexion also looks amazing. And again, it's a nice contrast with the white swimsuit, which has a pretty sporty look to it. And again, these Arm Notes girls are usually pretty attractive, and in this particular instance, I would say she's a little bit bustier than the other girls we've seen in this line so far. Moving on though, we're moving on to our last section with Alter. They had 3 figures this month, and all very expensive, starting off with the Azur Lane Taiho Sweet Time After School version. Single shipment, which is kind of crazy for this figure, for about 34,000 yen. Anyway, as far as the figure goes, I think she looks phenomenal, especially her hair sculpt. Like, look at those strands of hair curling on the bottom of the base as they just kind of like drape down from her head. Beautiful. The shading as well, top notch. Same could be said about her leggings, of course. Might as well say you're getting quite the view of her legs and everything in between on this sculpt. They're not even trying to hide anything down there, which is kind of nuts to me. But, you know, at the same time, they're also unbuttoning her top, showing off her bra. Honestly, I think that looks really good, especially how like thin the portion above the bra looks, so you see the skin underneath. That's like top-notch sculpting. Super impressive, like genuinely so. Seems like you could take off her glasses if you want to, and I guess give her cat ears. Had no idea that was a part of this sculpt. Oh, she's making a heart too. There's a lot to this figure, which I guess kind of justifies the price a little bit more in my head. Is she sticking her tongue out in this expression? I actually can't tell. I think she is, but like really slightly. Either way, without the glasses, you do get a better look at her face, and I do think she's rather pretty. Also, the bangs, I think, have like a very light red gradation to them, which I love. I don't think you get that anywhere else outside of the bangs, but it's very appreciated in the fronts, right by her eyes. I love that. Anyway, next up is a figure of August von Parzival for about 36,000 yen, another single shipment figure. You know, maybe these figures are like super heavy or something, and they don't want you to mix like smaller figures with this massive box and crush it during transit or something. Either way, a phenomenal looking figure. The big highlight here is absolutely all of that draping hair going down her arms, her body, the back of the couch. Same thing goes for the dress, right? Wrinkled all over the place. Also gotta give a shout out to her clothing, primarily the leggings and the top portion of the dress, around the chest of course, because they're trying to make them look super thin, almost like a transparent effect, but not that they actually are. They're just kind of seemingly painting portions of the leggings and the chest area like the same color or similar color to her skin complexion, just making it look like you could almost see through her clothing, which just makes the sculpt even sexier. And wow, that's a crazy shot. You could probably sell people this figure with just this one photo. So I don't even think I needed to talk about it. I could have just been like, here you go, here's the butt shot, which I have now lost. There you go. by August. Either way, our last figure of the video is none other than Dusk from Arknights for 35,000 yen. I've always been extremely impressed with this figure ever since I saw her painted, and nothing has really changed. Granted, you do need to lift a decent amount of this figure up with some extra support stance, but at the same time, it's like the smoky smog surrounding her, so it doesn't really bother me that much. Maybe her hair as well. I'm not sure what this one in the back does, but yeah, that does seem to be the case. Also, we do get a better look at this like one drippy point off of her hair that kind of just trails off over here. In fact, there's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, there's like 6 points that you need to connect this figure to the base to, which is honestly kind of annoying. But at the same time, I also think this figure looks like a work of art, so I would just deal with it personally. But either way, there's just something about the way they're sculpting and painting her hair and these smoky trails that almost looks like a watercolor effect, and I don't really know how to explain it, but it just kind of leaves me a little awestruck looking at her hair and those effects specifically. And like, if that was all that was good about this figure, that would be fine, but then you have like the massive sword that's like this really slick red, and it's got this cool diamond pattern on it. Also, her sheath that she's holding onto is massive as well. Her arms are all green and kind of ornate with the pattern work that's running down them. Her dress is all tattered up, and there's like this, I don't know, I'll call it a Triforce just for simplicity, but the Triforce pattern is just kind of fading out as it goes upward. I feel like at a first glance, this figure doesn't seem as impressive as the Arknight Schwarz figure that Alter also made with the humongous crossbow, but I think under the hood, this one looks better. I think it's painted better. I think it's just more impressive up close. It's just not as like dynamic. It's not as much of a centerpiece, and I do think the like rods keeping a lot of this figure up do hurt the visual appeal of this one a little bit, but I do need to know how this figure looks when it's finally out to cast the final judgment. Either way, Alter cooked. I kind of wish I played Arknight so I would care more about buying something like this, but at this price point, I just can't do it. But I'm kind of just taken aback a little bit with this one. I like looking at her face too. The glare, it's kind of intense, but I find her face rather pretty. Either way, that's going to do it for November's pre-order roundup. If you enjoy these types of videos, be sure to subscribe, leave me a little comment down there, and if you would like to, you could support me on Patreon, which helps keep these long-form videos coming. Thanks again for watching. I'll see you next time very soon. I don't know what that video will be, but it'll be something good. So hopefully I catch you there. Later.